On to the new stuff. A couple generic statements that I want to make and kind of just some bookkeeping items. Make sure the first being, make sure you're using the current NV5 logo. There it is. It's plain and generic. It just has NV5, no multi-vertical 5, no beyond engineering, and also make sure that it has our updated address. I know that that is going to take some time to flush out of your files, but just know, keep an eye open for it. This is what it should look like. This block itself is a dynamic block. The main thing, and this is not new, this has always been there, black and color. Somebody else set the default to color. I've since set it to black. The reason for that is even if we plot to our color machines, and this was the only color item on our entire sheet, we'd be charged at a color price, which is about 5 times the cost of black and white. So a company's eating thousands of dollars because of this color logo. So if you truly want it color, go on here, change it to color properties. But try to keep it on black. And also you'll notice on the new copy machines, the print drivers have changed. There's now a mono print driver for all the new copy machines. Please print to the mono unless you actually need color. You know, there is a big cost savings to that, and we are going to try to keep a little track of how we're doing on our print volumes. We've got these nice new machines. Now we want to kind of be able to reduce costs as well, so we can continue doing technology upgrades. So make sure that's set to black if you can, please. The other dynamic grips on here you'll notice is you can actually move it by just that grip. You can adjust where the text is, you can adjust the size of the text, and you can change the rotation of it, all in a dynamic block property. So sometimes, you know, sometimes you'll need to change this where it doesn't fit here. You might need to put it up here or something like that. So you can do that all in this dynamic block. The next thing you'll notice is the dig alert. This is the new dig alert logo and number. It's just 811. I don't know if you guys have noticed all the advertisement they've done over the last year to call 811. It's on NASCAR. It's even during like NFL games. There's all kinds of advertisement being poured into that. So just kind of look at this. This is the new logo. Should print a little bit better as well. It's cleaned up as a hatch instead of thousands of lines. So just something else to kind of take note of in your title blocks. This is the updated title block on the Q directory. So if you ever need something from it, you can steal that information from our CAD library, SD detail library, title blocks. The logo should be in all of the drawings. If not, let me know and I'll be sure to update it, but I'm pretty sure I caught that before we actually moved into this new building with the address in black. File etiquette. I know we kind of talk about it a lot because it's very important to me personally, and I think it's important to everyone here. When you open a file, you want to be sure that it's all the settings are set correctly so that you can actually start working. The last thing you ever want to do is open a file, start XREFing a file in and going, oh, why isn't my XREF appearing? Oh, it's because the last person in the file set the UCS to view or UCS to object or something like that. So 2 simple things that can really help with that. Just make sure that you treat your files correctly. The first being, if you do find a need to change the UCS, be sure to change the UCS back to world upon exiting the drawing. Another nice thing to do is kind of zoom extends your drawing. Make sure that you don't have any floating objects out in space. The last thing you want to do is have to chase those down in 10 different drawings. When you zoom extend in your drawing, oh wait, there's this floating pipe out in the EXUT, and then you clean that up and then you do the same thing, and oh, there's something floating in the EXTO. So just be sure to kind of treat your files with respect for others. UCS world, zoom extends, make sure you don't have any floating objects. With your plan sheets, your plan and profile sheets in particular, when you're in the layout tabs, make sure you zoom extends on those before switching to the next layout tab. If you've ever noticed how, let's say you're zoomed in like this and you switch to the tab and it's like this, and you start zooming out and you get like halfway out zooming out and your computer hangs up because it's got to regen your profile viewport. So be sure to zoom extends before you switch your tabs. It will save you a lot of generation time. And with these plan and profile drawings, with all those labels, your regeneration time takes like a good minute or two. So it's important to kind of cut that out of our workflow. So be sure to just do yourself a simple favor, do your coworkers a simple favor, zoom extends before changing your layout tab. Next topic, templates. Make sure you select the right template when you're starting your drawings. There's a couple things you may notice under the templates. First being, there's several new templates. There's a gas template now for all of our gas work that we're starting up pretty heavily. So if you have any questions or if you're starting some gas work, you may want to talk to me a little bit to kind of determine what's in those templates, what we can use. The gas is basically your generic. It's going to be for the majority of your work. It's where you're going to generate your plan and profile sheets from, most of your base files. We do have a simplified gas alignment file that's just going to contain your alignment, gas points. That's going to contain your description key code sets for Sempra and for any gas entities that we shoot. So be sure to use those files. Next one you'll notice is this PRPF wall. Before that was PRPF WL, I think, and it was starting to confuse people, so I renamed it with dash wall. That's only for wall profiles. Any other profile that you do, if you're not working on energy or power, is going to be the PRTO. The reason why we don't have a PRPN or PRPF is because in that type of work, your profile gets tied to a lot of grading objects. So there's a lot of duplication there. So we just keep it all in one file. So it's PRTO and your PRPF, really, because you've got your corridors in there, and those corridors are going to be tied to your profile. So that's the reason why that's not a separate PRPF. Use your PRTO. Next thing you'll notice is under the SDG&E, we have our mobile home park one, we have our distribution design, our building 2 project management, and now we used to have a SDG&E civil. It's been renamed T&D for transmission and distribution. So that's kind of the bread and butter. Most of the people here may use that template. So that's been renamed from civil to T&D. And you'll also notice we have a T&D as-built. That's something I developed last week to kind of help assist on our as-built drawings for our trenches. We won't cover that today, but just know that that's in development. A lot of that's going to be based off of point styles, point labels, and your point description key set. So if you do get into as-builts for your transmission and distribution, be sure to talk to me and we can address that workflow in particular. I've done quite a bit in terms of projecting those points onto the profile to make drawing your profiled as-built trench a lot easier for you. And there's some tricks to that. So I want to be sure to pass those on as a as-needed basis. Projecting points to your profile, when you start talking thousands of points, you can experience a lot of hang-ups, and there's some tricks to getting that to work. On those SDG&E ones, being Building 2 project management and Building 5 distribution design, if you're unsure what you need to use for your project, be sure to ask your project manager, project engineer, or designer. It's very important that you use the right template from day one. You'll save yourself a lot of time and headache in the long run. So take that simple step of making sure you know what you're working on. You guys have all probably noticed that there are block matrices in all the templates now. You can kind of see in the preview of the T&D one, there's kind of a block grid and matrix of all the blocks. Not all the blocks, but most of the custom blocks that are currently in the template file. They're there so you know what's available to you when you open the project. For those in the T&D group, I am starting to develop existing electrical vaults with the correct layers and line types. Just be aware that that's coming up here shortly. And they're basically the same as the proposed, except just the layers and line types. Okay. We held a special kind of get together for those starting to work on the gas projects, but I want everybody to know that there's a lot of resources available for gas design. So if you get called in to kind of help or assist on a gas pipeline project, be sure to talk to me. We have a whole new tool palettes available for all the gas fittings and devices, and we've got those new templates as well. So there's quite a few tools and resources available for those working on gas line projects. Creating an EXTO. This has kind of been an issue here as of late. How do you create an EXTO and what goes into it? Your EXTO should basically be a background base drawing of existing topography and planimetrics. Anything that basically the aerial list picks up. What you're going to do is you're going to create a copy of the file that we received from the aerial list, throw it under the master folder. Whether or not you want to start using that file, probably okay. However, you're going to make a copy of that file and rename it C3 as well, EXTO C3. Now, why do we have two separate ones? When you create a surface 10 in that file, you'll notice that the size of your file about triples. So the last thing you want to do is X-reference in a 40 megabyte file into every single plan sheet that you create. So it's very important to create those C3 files for that reason. It'll be a lot faster if you do. It will also keep your data kind of separate. So be sure to do that. What about survey data? You know, we have this EXTO, FTO. It's the survey data sometimes needs to supplement the information that we receive from the aerialist. So you may be required to insert some of those survey points into your EXTO C3 file. Be sure to do everything Civil 3D in your C3 file. So any points should all be in the C3 file if you need to supplement any of that data. Point styles. For a long time, our MV5 typical workflow for points is you bring in your points and it's a big jumbled mess of overlapping markers and text and everything else. How would you typically get it to appear correctly? What would be your solution? Change the scale. Perfect. That was the answer. The wrong answer I was hoping for. I knew I could count on Jason. Correct. Typically, you guys would go down here, change your annotation scale to maybe 1 to 1 or 1 to 10, right? Something, a pretty small scale to get those points a lot smaller so that you can read them. When you do that, there's a lot of things that change. If you have any annotation text, all your text size change. All your line type scales change. So you're doing a lot of changes to your drawing. The better way is, let me close this. Is to actually set the point style and point label styles correctly. So what you'll notice, and you probably have noticed this, is that there's different size markers available to you. The best, from my experience, is to use the 0.01 size. That will usually come up pretty well on your 30 and 40 scale drawings. So be sure to set your marker and label styles to the 0.01 size. That way you can leave your scale at 40. All your line types will still be correct, and you'll get the desired point scales associated with that. What's the easiest way to set those? By your point group. Typically in your all points, you can just make the change there. By default, this is already defined as the 0.01 for you. And you'll notice only one override is checked. That's dependent on what you're really after. I don't want to necessarily force the point style to override in case you want your point block markers. So that's kind of a decision that you're going to need depending on what you're doing. But know that this is pretty important so that you don't have to change your scale, and so all your line types will still be representative of what you're going to get in your plan and production. Any questions on that or anything we've discussed so far? Still talking with the points. Something that's important is going to your description key sets. You'll notice that we have multiple description key sets in here, and with good reason. The important thing is to ignore the order that they appear here. In this menu here, they're solely alphabetical. What you need to really focus on is when you right-click and go to Properties, this is the order in which it searches through. So depending on your workflow, you will need to change this order. So if you want block markers, right now, block markers, all your points are going to use the block markers. If you don't want the block markers and you just want everything to be a basic X marker, you're going to need to move that one up. A couple questions have come up this last week on creating an EXUT and trying to extract your block symbols only. So if you want to do that kind of workflow, you would take this guy and move him all the way to the top. And when you do that and use this define block symbols only, it's only going to show the points that have the blocks associated with them. And that's the only thing that's going to appear on your screen. There's not going to be any point labels or basic X markers. It's only going to be the blocks that like sewer manhole, water meter, those type of blocks. That's the only thing that's going to show on your screen. Everything else is going to be set to no display. So this is important to make sure that you have the search order set correctly. Now if I change it here, notice that these do not change. So this is just an alphabetical list. You need to go right-click, go to Properties, and this will be your search order. Whichever one it finds first is the one it's going to run through, just so you know. All right. This may not affect too many people here because we rely on our surveyors to do this, but when our surveyors string points together, if you're not getting the anticipated results, there may be a reason because it may be shot incorrectly. In your CSV file, make sure that it is, let me just open this up so you guys can see it. Make sure that this is a good example of what it should be. It should be EP1 space B. A lot of times in the past our surveyors were going EP space 1. So this is the correct format. They should all be on board with this, but in case you're not getting stringing to work correctly, this is the formatting in your CSV to get it to string correctly. So it's going to be EP1 or SW1 or whatever your survey code is without a space in between it and the string number. I will say the one issue that I've run into with the all points in the survey database is with point stringing. Because when you combine all those strong things together in your CSV, typically our surveyors in each individual CSV or each time they go to the field, they'll go EP1, and then a week later when they go out and start stringing again, they'll go EP1 again. So if it's all in one CSV, it's going to read that as one figure, and the intention was for it to be 2 figures. So your survey figures in your all points may not be usable. So keep that in mind if you're really after your survey figures, you may need to do your survey figures by individual import events.
Those were brought in as individual import events, so it'll work correctly.
You know, actually, I actually need to check that out. It should. It should. I need to investigate that a little bit. I just know that I ran into that issue, and it was pretty apparent. You're going to see stringing lines all over your screen where they aren't intended. So that's something we need to coordinate maybe a little bit more on. I just know that it is an issue. I don't have a resolution for it yet, but it is an issue, and that is something that we may have to kind of change out in the field on how we code those stringing, whether or not we keep track of the numbers that we use, or I don't know yet, because that's a nightmare. So just be aware of that if you run into a job or a particular workflow where stringing is important. You may need to move to individual import events. That's probably going to be part of that workflow. So there may be a real need to have that two survey database, one with just your all points file that you continually rotate out, and another survey database with all your individual import events. So just kind of keep that in mind if you're after survey figures. Talking about survey figures, figure styles have been set up in the template file. So all your survey figures should come in with the right style and on the right layers. So if you ever get a survey figure that comes in on 0 layer and is white or just doesn't follow any NV5 standard, please let me know so I can correct that. But that was quite an effort, quite frankly, to get all that defined. It's defined both in your drawing file and in the survey database settings. So keep that in mind. Even if you're using an older file, it may not have the right style set up in your drawing. Even though it's set up in your survey figure in the survey database, it needs to be set and matching in both the survey database settings and your drawing file. So all those should be set. If you experience anything, please let me know so I can correct it.
I got a question.
Yes.
When I think this happens to me multiple times, I don't know if this has been fixed, but like, what is there anything that we can do when it comes in on just like the regular like layer as opposed to like a so-and-so point layer? Does that make sense?
For points or figures?
For points.
Yeah, often they come in on just the
Like the
regular non-PT.
Not PT at the end. That's what you're talking about.
Is that like is that something we can fix, or is that something that's just gonna be?
I need to know about it and I can fix it. What that is controlled by is it's actually controlled by your point description key sets. So for instance, in here, we can go into one real quick. So there are reasons and rationale for that. And this is how Mr. Svislin had it set up. Like this is a good example here. Anything that does not have a block for the marker or the point style is going to be set to the PT layer. Anything that has a block, let's say like this irrigation valve, it's set to the non-PT layer. This is something I'm open to change, quite frankly. I would not have set it up this way. If you had asked me to set up a point description key, I would not have chosen to set it up this way. So I'm inheriting this more or less. That doesn't mean we can't change it though. I think it's a little too complex personally in terms of having the label style and all these layers. You guys have about 400 layers for points because you need the PT and the regular layer. So you're looking at 400 layers just to handle your points. So I'm open to hearing suggestions on this and what you guys want. If you want everything to be on a PT layer, it creates an issue because when you go and freeze your PT layers, those sewer manholes, those water valves are going to be frozen as well. So that's why it's set up this way, so that you can turn off your PT and all your labels are going to disappear, but you're still going to have your block markers. So that was the intention of this setup. So if it's not like that, please let me know and we can look at making any adjustments. This has been changed quite a bit, and we've added to it, so it's possible that a layer, that has a style associated with it isn't on a PT layer, and that it should be. So let me know specific cases, and we can kind of look into them and handle them. But that's kind of the logic behind the setup. Alignment labels. This is Elizabeth's favorite subject. A lot of times on our alignments, we'll add, the 10+00 alignment labels above the ticks. And due to all the utilities or something, it'll become necessary to drag that label off to a clear space where we don't have any text overlap. Now what happens is somebody makes a change to the alignment, and all your labels that you just spent a couple hours moving to clear and over 7.5 miles, the minute somebody changes that alignment and the data reference synchronizes, all those alignment labels snap back to their original location. And then you've got to redo all that text dragging for 7.5 miles. There is a solution. It's not an elegant one by any means, but it can save you from having to redrag all those texts for 7.5 miles, or however long your project is. So let's do a quick example here. We'll just create a dummy alignment. All right. So let's say we move this guy, and it's a data shortcut, and I come back and I synchronize it. It's going to pop back, and it's going to reset itself, basically. So the trick to not have it reset when you synchronize your alignment is in the Properties window. You have to select it, and then in your Property window, I'm not seeing it. Oh, this is the trick. Anytime you have to manipulate a Civil 3D label that's part of a set, you have to control select it. So now I have that individual one selected. The trick is right here in your Properties window, pinned. Set this to true. And you'll notice that that red pin comes up. Now when you synchronize that alignment, that label is pinned to that location, and it will not move. It will not automatically adjust. Those working on transmission and distribution hopefully are familiar with pinning labels, because you need to pin your structure labels in your profile. That's how you're able to move them around. So keep this in mind anytime you're moving your alignment labels to not have text overlapping or overlapping other utilities that you want to plot clearly. Be sure to control select them and then set pinned to true. It's a little bit of a hassle, a little bit extra work, but it'll save you having to redo them all next time somebody makes a change in the alignment, because our alignments never change here at NV5. That was a joke. Surface label styles. Surface label styles have been completely updated, especially for spot elevations. This list was quite long. We had some right, left, dog leg down, right, left, dog leg up, right, left. It's been simplified dramatically. You've got just a handful of categories, whether or not your text is to the right of your label or left of your label. And then under there, you've got some options, whether or not you want flow line, finish grade, TC, or top of grade. From that, then you can drag that around to be up, down, and how far away from your point you want. So this has been completely revamped. I would encourage you to use it if you ever need to label some spot elevations. We've also got some that reference surfaces, multiple points. So those in the survey group are pretty familiar with those. But for the design purposes, these may be very useful to you, and they've been dramatically simplified and more user-friendly. Just be aware of those if you ever need to label a surface elevation. Something that is very, very important that has been done incorrectly here for quite a while, and I want to kind of correct that behavior. I know it's hard to remember sometimes, but anytime you're dealing with pipe networks, so this is going to be basically for your proposed electrical vaults or your existing utilities in your EXTO C3 file. I've tried to make it easy on you guys and pre-populated the pipe networks, so you don't have to create pipe networks and find the right parts list. However, you cannot use these directly from the template. You have to edit them before you use them. The main reason, if I go into here and I'm going to edit this network, this is what you need to do anytime before you start a pipe network. Edit the network. And a little fly up box will pop up. Or AutoCAD will crash. One of the two.
That's my usual screen.
Yeah, this never happens, right? Just trying to replicate workflows. I am on the wireless network, so things may be trying to autosave very slowly. Buffering. Hate that thing. What that would show you is that pipe network is not tied to a surface, and it's not tied to any alignment. The important thing for most of the workflows here is the surface. Your pipe networks need to be tied to your EXTO surface, existing surface file, or your proposed if that's what you're designing to. The reason for this is anytime you insert a structure or a pipe, you want it to, there we go, 12 minutes later. So right now you'll see that surface, none, alignment, none. The most important thing is that you guys set your surface. It needs to be set to your EXTO or your design surface, whatever you want your pipes to use as the basis for their design and insertion. Typically for our structures, we want the rim to go up to the surface. If that's not set, it's going to be, when you create your part, it's going to go at 0 elevation. And you're going to have to manually go through and adjust every single vault structure, every single pipe. Quite time intensive. So be sure that you click this button. It's grayed out on mine because I don't have any surfaces data shortcutted into my drawing. You'd click this and then set your surface. That surface name would appear here. Similarly, if you're using an alignment for your pipe network, you need to click this button and select the alignment as well. The only time where you would use this is if you are actually trying to profile an existing utility or a proposed utility. Most of our existing utilities, we don't attach to any alignment. We do attach the PREC to an alignment, so we would utilize that for our PREC pipe network. So that's very important that you set your surface so that all the things that you create snap up to your surface. You can eliminate hours of simple drafting by just 2 clicks. There are 2 ways of creating pipes. I think most people here are familiar with both ways. At any point in time, you can use this tool by going to the Edit Network and then drawing whatever pipe you want, whether or not you want pipe and structures or pipes only. And you can click here and it will draw a point, a pipe. if I had this attached to a surface, it would use the rules associated with this pipe, this parts list, and set the inverts of my pipe based on those rules. Most of the rules are going to be pretty generic. We can look at them real quick here. We got a couple minutes. Oops, that's not what I want. You shouldn't really ever have to do this, but in case you do, it's down under Pipe Networks parts list. You guys really shouldn't be messing with these, but I'll show you nevertheless. We'll go to pipes. We'll take a look at these rules. So right now, any pipe that I create is going to use 3 feet of cover, and that's how it's going to set the invert. So it's going to take that EXTO, drop it 3 feet of cover, and set my inverts accordingly. So that's why it's very important to set your surface, because that's how it's going to create all these pipes. So if we had a surface in here, that pipe end, wherever I initially click, is going to have 3 feet of cover on it. The other way to create pipes in a pipe network is through the NV5 tools and through this guy here, pipe from points. The important thing that I want to, I shouldn't have done that. He's going to go up to Sacramento and pull some data. The thing that I want to elaborate here is typically we're going to use 2 points. Most important thing about this is to make sure that you set this correctly. What is the data in your survey point? Is it the top of the pipe, centerline pipe, or inverted pipe? Be sure that you set this correctly. Typically for our potholes, it's going to be top of pipe, but make sure with each pipe that you have the right data in here. If you're talking a 30-inch pipe and you have it on inverted pipe, you're going to be over 2.5 feet off on where your pipe is, and that could have dramatic effect, catastrophic effect on your proposed design. So one little click can really cost us a lot of money. So be sure that this is set correctly, especially when you're setting potholed utilities. List routines, there's a couple new list routines that have been requested and implemented. Sent out an email a week or two regarding some of them, but I did want to kind of highlight a couple. Again, all the list routines that I develop here or users request are going to be in the San Diego folder, and they're going to be sorted by kind of what they do rather than the mess that's here. I can't use any of it. It's a little hard to find most of them. So that's just my personal preference. San Diego folder clears it up, and there's not thousands. There's just 100. So the first one is going to be block vertical exaggeration. And as long as I'm doing my job correctly, anytime you load a list routine, it's going to give you this line here of type this command to run the Lisp. So this one actually has, I think, four list routines written into it to do different vertical exaggerations. So let's say we have a block developed, and I'm going to put it in my profile, and my profile has a vertical exaggeration of 5. Type V5, select my object. In this case, it's just a simple polyline to give you an idea. Give a base point, probably the bottom or center or top. And there you go. We have a vertical exaggeration of that block. Saves a little time in terms of if you have just some line work. It's going to make a block of it, exaggerate it. This one does explode it after it's done exaggerating. If you don't want it to explode, let me know, and I can change that code rather quickly, or we can make one or give an option to explode or not explode. If it's a block already, that's where it's the most powerful. I selected a simple polyline. If you already have a block, it's going to create a block, vertically exaggerate it, and then explode that temporary block. So you're still going to have your original block, and it's going to be exaggerated by 5. So that's one list routine. The next is going to be double offset. This is very helpful for any time you're creating an EXUT. So let's say we have a storm drain center line here. Typically we'd go offset, 1.5 feet and do something like that, right? For every line. Hopefully you're smart enough to join your center line into a polyline, so you only have to do it once. But here you can type double offset, give it a distance of 1.5, select the line, done. So that can be helpful if you're doing a lot of pipeline, specifically in your EXUT here. Next one that's very helpful and can have some really good applications for both T&D and gas is to measure an angle between two lines with a vertical exaggeration. So let's say on our profile we have an exaggeration of 5. It's really hard to find what angle that grade break is in our pipe because it has a vertical exaggeration. So what you'd end up doing is you'd actually develop a block, do all kinds of workarounds. There's now a LISP routine to measure that for you. Miscellaneous, angle at vertical exaggeration. So on this, command is VA, and then you select the two lines that you want to measure between. Say this guy and this guy, and then you enter in your vertical scale of exaggeration. So let's say 5. And that's going to return the angle, 9.12 degrees. So that's really helpful on your profile vertical exaggerations. The one thing I have to tell you about this is it has to be lines. It can't do polylines, which is kind of a bummer because if we do our pipes or trenches, it's usually one polyline that we like. Not that big of a deal. What I would suggest is explode your polyline real quick, run the LISP routine to figure out your angle, and then undo your explode command. So not too big of a deal, but this could be very helpful to you guys. Hopefully you'll get some use out of this. The next one that is very important for everyone here is to check the tangency of your polyline before you create your alignment. A lot of times we'll have, miles and miles of polyline representing our trench. And the last thing we want to do is click that polyline, create an alignment, and then get all these warning triangles at our curvature points. I know a lot of us have seen that. And then you've got to go back, kind of go through, refill it, and then you've got to edit your alignment by either moving the grips off and then moving the grips back on for each one. Maybe can become quite labor intensive. So there is a LISP routine to kind of help with this. It's going to be, that's one of my favorite ones while I'm here. Page setup current. I've covered this in the past, but this is really helpful. If you load and run this routine, it will take whatever page layout you have applied to your layout tab and apply it to all the other tabs in your drawing. So this is really helpful if you want to set the default page setup to all your tabs. But the one I'm talking about, polyline check tan. So go check tan. And I'll select the polyline. And what it does is it draws a circle, magenta circle, at the point where it's not tangent. This way you can fix all your tangency issues before you create your alignment. It will save you a little bit of a step. Right now I think this guy's set to either a 5-foot or 10-foot radius, 10-foot radius. Let me know how that works out for you guys. Depending on how long your alignment is, you may want that to be bigger. You may want it to be smaller. I don't know. I just threw 10 in because it seemed like a good radius of the circle. So then you can come back and fix your tangency. You will have to delete that. It is just a simple circle just a regular AutoCAD circle. So you will need to delete those after you're done fixing them. It is on its own layer though, construction check tan layer, so you can layer isolate or you select similar without destroying.
Is that a no plot layer?
It is a no plot layer. All construct layers are non-plottable layers. All right, so that's all the LISP routines that have. There's one more, but I don't want to cover it yet. Yeah, I don't want to cover it. There are 2 additional topics that I'll just mention. I won't cover them because we've kind of run out of time, but I want you to be aware of what's available and what the software can do for you under certain circumstances. The first being creating sections. A lot of times we'll create sections of, let's say, a street. We're looking at, pavement slopes, doing some R&R. We're creating trench sections and want to see where the right-of-way is, how close our vaults are to the right-of-way or to the curb line or some special feature. There is a Civil 3D automated workflow to kind of have that plot in all your section views. It's very helpful. The best way of doing it is I'll just briefly tell you the workflow. I won't demonstrate it, I'll just kind of talk through it. And if you encounter this in a workflow, I can kind of help you out a little bit. But let's say you want to have your right-of-way show in all of your section views. What you do is you'd create an alignment on top of your right-of-way. And then what you do is you'd go under to alignments, sample, okay, under your tool space. I don't know if this is going to be great. I'll have to talk you through it because I don't have anything in here. What you'd actually do is you can sample that alignment and add it as a sample line in all your section views. And it will come up just like, I don't know if you guys have noticed, on your alignment, any geometry point, you can have it show up as a line in your profile view. Typically, we turn that layer off, but it's basically the same type of thing with sampling and alignment. In your section view, you can have it basically be part of your grid. So it'll show up on a layer. You can set the style to be, right away, so it can be, blue and Phantom 2 or whatever you want. And it'll show up in all your section views. So rather than having to calculate, oh, that's 10 feet offset or 10.53 feet offset from my center line of my section, and then drawing that line, you can have it automatically do it just by setting your right-of-way as an alignment. Next thing I would want to cover real briefly, the last thing for the day, is profile vertical curve labels. They've kind of been a mess from day one. They have, I feel, been substantially improved. They're still a little glitchy, a little not as user-friendly as we'd all expect, but they're getting better. I've completely rebuilt them and how they are made up, so I wanted to cover that briefly. So here's where they are. They're under your profile label curve. We have 2 right now. I think this top one, you'll use both. This is the one that you really need to worry about, VC all-inclusive. This label is very smart. It actually knows whether or not it's a low point or a high point, and it will label it accordingly. Before, you'd have to change the style or explicitly tell it, hey, this is a high point. I want it to show high point information. So you'd have to identify those in your profile, click on it individually, and then switch the style. This style has been built intelligently so that it automatically detects whether or not it's a high point or low point and will label it accordingly. So this one, it labels the high point. This one, it labels the low point. Even though it uses the exact same style. Both those labels have the exact same style. Before, we would have to specify, oh, this is my high point style, this is my low point style, this is my high point style. These actually use the exact same style, but displays different information. So those have been completely revamped. All these include that intelligence. A lot of cases, we need to drag this label. Let's say we have some label conflict here and we need to drag this. That is still very difficult to do, but it's possible now. The way that you would do that, or the way that I have it set up currently to do that, is actually to tell it, hey, just give me no marker, BVC information only. All right, so we got that guy. And then what you're going to want to do is you're actually going to want to copy it. So now that there's two labels there, I had this expanded all the way. There's two. I'm going to select one of them, change this guy to end. So now I've got two labels actually here. And then I can manipulate one and the other. And then I can kind of connect the dots. So we can play around with these a little bit, but that's kind of the current workflow to be able to drag them a little bit, because they're still a mess, they're still not user-friendly, but at least now you don't have to explode them to get them to work. And that's the whole point, is to have all your data, all your labels be dynamic and intelligent. And apparently that's time to end. And that is all. So if you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you.
Any questions before we actually dismiss?
I have a lot, but
Have you taken a stab at portion of vertical curve?
No. Hey, before you guys leave, can you sign in on this sign-in sheet, please? I'll pass two around. How about that?
My sign was I just about grabbed the second piece off your plate.